The earthquake that ravaged Haiti in 2010 was not a natural disaster. Although the shaking of the earth was a natural occurrence, the history that made Haiti so vulnerable to the quake is not natural at all. Haiti's vulnerability is the result of a long thread of exploitation that goes back to Christopher Columbus, whose arrival was soon followed by the decimation of the indigenous population and the importing of slaves from Africa to work the expanding sugar plantations. Haiti was a wealthy, productive land, but the fruit of the slaves' labor accrued to foreigners and to the white and mulatto elite living on the island. Yet eventually the slaves rose up, defeating the French army, and the first independent republic in Latin America declared itself an asylum for escaped slaves. Such independence could not be allowed by the superpowers of the time, France, Britain, Germany, the United States. So Haitians were forced to make huge payments for the privilege of remaining free. Anytime Haitians resisted this neo-colonial control, foreign warships would remind them it was time to pay up. The United States, although trading heavily with Haiti, refused for decades to recognize the country's independence, because to do so would send the wrong signal to African slaves toiling in the cotton fields of the U.S. South. By the end of the 19th century, 80% of national revenue, most of it derived from the work of rural peasants, was siphoned out of the economy to pay the country's debt. If Haitians balked at making payments, the U.S. Navy would come calling and seize the money from the government's treasury. The U.S. Marines came to stay in 1915, occupying the country until 1934. The Marine colonel who led the troops ashore was from Virginia. The U.S. Marines dissolved the Haitian Parliament and instituted a new constitution written by Franklin Roosevelt that did away with the prohibition on foreigners owning land. The Marines drove tens of thousands of Haitian farmers off their lands so foreign companies could set up huge plantations. When Haitians rebelled against U.S. control, the Marines utilized machine guns and aerial bombing to massacre thousands. When U.S. troops finally withdrew from Haiti in 1934, the country had to once again pay for the privilege of being left alone. Haiti owed more than $40 million to the United States, and payments were assured because both the Haitian Treasury and the Haitian National Bank were owned by a bank in New York. In the Marines' absence, servile Haitian politicians, their skin usually a shade lighter than the skin of rural farmers, kept the country a safe investment for U.S. companies. When peasants or students chafed under the repression, the U.S.-trained Haitian military took care of the problem. In 1957, the military put François Duvalier, Papa Doc, in power, and soon he took permanent control with help from his personal death squads, the Tonton Mocoute. When Duvalier had trouble with Catholic priests stirring up the poor, he kicked them out and took upon himself the power to appoint Catholic bishops. Evangelical churches, which didn't challenge the dictator, grew throughout the country. When Duvalier died in 1971, the Nixon administration assured that control of Haiti passed to his son Jean-Claude, Baby Doc, who was educated at a Methodist school. Baby Doc returned the U.S. favor by repressing labor unions, keeping wages low, and guaranteeing U.S. corporations the right to take all their profits back home. Haitians began to flee the country in droves, with thousands of boat people arriving on the shores of Florida. In the absence of any real land reform, steep Haitian hillsides were stripped of trees by desperate peasants, turning wood into charcoal for burgeoning urban slums. The seasonal rains began to wash Haiti into the sea. Popular resistance to Baby Doc grew among rural farmers and the urban poor, encouraged by prophetic leaders who risked their lives for their people. Faced with growing popular resistance and a U.S. government that decided he had outlived his usefulness, Baby Doc was forced to flee in 1986, yet he was quickly replaced by other members of the Haitian elite who practiced what became known as Duvalierism without Duvalier. Supported by hundreds of millions of dollars of U.S. military assistance, the Haitian army crushed all dissent. Yet a courageous democratic movement continued to press for free elections, and in 1990, Father Jean-Bertrand Aristide was elected president in a landslide. The Haitian poor were jubilant. As Haiti's first democratically elected president, Aristide began a program of land reform. He strengthened workers' rights, improved health care and education for the poor, raised literacy, attacked official corruption, and fought Haiti's involvement in drug trafficking. Many in the popular movement wanted him to do even more, but even Aristide's moderate reforms proved too much for the U.S. government and the Haitian elite. After 8 months in office, Aristide was overthrown in a coup led by a Methodist general. Demands from the poor for the president's return finally brought Aristide back to Haiti in 1994, a return negotiated with the Clinton administration that allowed Aristide to serve out the last year of his elected term. As part of the negotiations, however, he had to give up several of his movement's goals and accept economic changes mandated by the International Monetary Fund, yet he did succeed in disbanding the Haitian army. Aristide was elected president again in 2000 by an overwhelming margin, but the Bush administration conducted a sophisticated propaganda campaign to discredit Aristide at home and abroad and financed a mock rebel group that attacked the country. In 2004, U.S. soldiers seized Aristide at gunpoint in the middle of the night and flew him out of the country. Within weeks, a United Nations stabilization force was deployed in Haiti to keep the peace, but there was no peace to keep. Haiti was once a lush Caribbean paradise, but centuries of unjust land tenure have created an environmental disaster. Church groups and others work with rural peasants to stave off even greater environmental catastrophe. But in the absence of government support, it's a losing battle. Farmers who once grew crops like rice have long gone bankrupt, unable to survive in an international economic environment that protects corporate agribusiness and destroys small farms. With the collapse of the rural economy, hundreds of thousands of poor Haitians fled to the capital, where they crowded into substandard housing and eked out a living in a bustling informal economy. The earthquake exposed the inequality and injustice upon which Haiti's economy rests. The lighter-skinned mulattoes who live in nice houses in hills above Port-au-Prince suffered few losses when the ground shook, but many of the poor in the sweltering slums below lost everything. Hundreds of thousands of them remain living today in what are generously called tents, where each morning many Haitian mothers get their children ready for school. Most schools in Haiti are sponsored by churches and other private groups, since for most of Haiti's history, the government has had no interest in educating the people. The same is true for healthcare, with most residents in this republic of NGOs having to depend on the largesse of outsiders if they get sick. Nowhere in the world is the relationship between paternalism and dependency so evident. As long as outsiders, including church groups from the United States, continue to flock to Haiti to solve Haitians' problems for them, then long-lasting, sustainable solutions to Haiti's chronic poverty will remain elusive. We see this in the epidemic of cholera that spread quickly through the country last year, killing thousands. Cholera is a disease caused by bacteria, but it can only thrive in the absence of education, public sanitation, and empowerment. Aid groups can treat the sick and work to educate the poor on the need for proper sanitation. But until Haiti once again is allowed to have a government that represents the vast majority of its people who are desperately poor, cholera will continue to kill. The United Methodist Church has many ties to the Haitian people, and United Methodist women have long supported efforts to empower women and children in Haiti, as well as Haitian families living in the neighboring Dominican Republic. In the wake of the earthquake, United Methodist women provided critical support to groups helping orphans survive, to women struggling to rid the tent cities of gender-based violence, to clinics ensuring that the health needs of women and children are not forgotten, and to organizations helping poor children traumatized by the quake to discover moments of relaxation and joy. Working with partners like UMCOR, Church World Service, and the ACT Alliance, United Methodists continue supporting life-giving work with the least of our Haitian sisters and brothers. We support Church World Service as it provides housing for people living with disabilities, as well as education and training to Restivex, the children of poor Haitian families who've been forced to work for decades in virtual slavery. We support the ACT Alliance as it builds dignified housing for quake survivors and carries out psychosocial work among poor children in urban slums, helping them cope with post-traumatic stress after the earthquake by teaching them the Afro-Brazilian dance form of capoeira. Whatever we do in response to the disaster, the problems provoked by the earthquake are not going to be resolved quickly or cheaply because they are deeply rooted in more than 2 centuries of Haitian history. No matter how much money the international community is willing to spend, the only way Haiti can recover from the earthquake is by addressing the causes of its dramatic poverty, causes deeply rooted in racism and colonialism, and by discovering ways to free up the creativity and solidarity of the Haitians themselves. The people of Haiti are not poor because they are less fortunate, or because they're lazy, or because they practice voodoo, or because their leaders supposedly made a pact with the devil long ago. Instead, their poverty has been manufactured by a world which simply could not tolerate the example of a free and dignified country led by former slaves.